So I just wanted to share with everyone, you know, they've restarted site visits. They are virtual. We've all been spoiled because we haven't been having to deal with site visits for at least 3 years. But now that they're doing them virtually, they are starting to really move on them. And I know at our institution, we've had many specialties already have had site visits or have them coming up soon. Most recently, otolaryngology, I know the coordinator there, and it has only been a few weeks ago that they got their blackout date request, and then their date is set for March. So we, don't want to be sitting on our laurels and surprised that this is coming, because it is going to be coming. I think he told me had been due in 2019. Ours had been due in 2020. So, I feel like we'll be lucky if we get another year before we get one. And I just feel like with them doing them virtually, they're going to really be able to double up and get them done a lot faster. So I think it's important to start preparing for that. And one of the things that we were talking about at the SAU meeting when we talked about site visits was that a lot of coordinators kind of keep their documents in a way that they can very easily access them when it becomes time, because these are all going to be digital files. When they're virtual, they're going to be digital. You're not going to have a binder. You're not going to have to print out a bunch of stuff. So you just need to have a good filing system of where you're keeping things. And if you use New Innovations or MedHub, you might want to wait. You don't want to obviously be downloading evaluations until you know you need them. But my GME office just shared this recently. So this very recent requirements that they're saying we need to expect to provide when we have a site visit. So I wanted to share this information, and I will be sending it out to everybody, so you don't have to try to screenshot or whatever. So let me share my screen now. And so they went ahead, they actually have told their information, let you know what you're going to need for the site visitor and the review committee, or if you're going to need it just for the site visitor only. And again, I'm not going to go into all the details. It looks like, no, I didn't duplicate. Blank evaluation forms. And then they're going to want blank evaluation forms. And I don't know, I just know what our GME office is doing. They are really looking hard at evaluations. So if your evaluations are lacking, I would, as ours are, because we have been using the milestones ever since I've been here for evaluations. And that is not acceptable to our GME office. So I just gave my program director a warning this morning that we are going to have to redo all of our evaluations. And so that's one of the things. And these are things, a lot of this stuff is stuff you could start on now, so that, again, you don't get caught and have to really just drop every single thing you're doing for 2 months to try to get ready. Went too far, no. So then these are things that the site visitor only you would provide for them. And again, we have some weak areas. I'm sure, we're not the only program in the world that has some weak areas. One of our weak areas is our quality improvement activities. If nothing else, I don't know what is being done in the way of quality improvement. So for me to have to pull that information, it wouldn't be the easiest thing to do. We can do it, but I'm going to tell you, our GME is telling the otolaryngology coordinator that their monthly quality improvement meetings don't count as quality improvement activities. And I told him actually that I thought he should press her about that because the residents present a case and the residents and faculty discuss the case. And so I don't really understand why that can't count toward it. You maybe can't count it as all of it, but it should count as something, in my opinion. And so, just a heads up, and this is our GME, maybe yours is different. I don't know, how much of this is influenced by what they've already seen with other site visits. And maybe it is influenced by that, but I'm not sure, because I will say our GME office tends to overkill. Everything we do is like over the top. If everything they want us to do is over the top. So then these are just more of the things you'll need, information from your resident files, graduate information. They do want to see, if they're asking for it here. I've heard, that they want you to be surveying your graduates a few years after graduation, which again, that's something we haven't really done. I think partially because it's like, what do we ask them? What do we get? How do we get anything meaningful from them? So, and we tend to, my program director tends to feel like if it's not something meaningful, it's not really something we need to do. So anyway, I also have some other information that I've gleaned from other places that I would be happy to include. There's like a checklist I saw in my files that I have of different things, but some of that is old. This is actually like within the last month. I think it was at last month's GME meeting, that GMEC meeting, that they shared this. So this is really, really recent. And again, just don't be lulled into believing that because yours was not due until 2021, that it's going to be 2026 before they get to you, because it's probably not. Anyway, that's really all. I don't have a whole lot, but if anybody here has been involved in a site visit recently and would be wanting to share their experience, I think that would be super helpful. I have not. I always just tell Dr. Moy that I'm going to retire when they say it's time for a site visit. I don't want to deal with it, but I'm sure I will deal with it. So go ahead, Susan.
Awesome. That was funny, by the way. I was loving that one. I'm going to retire before the site visit.
Yeah.
My question, I actually have a couple quick questions. I know at the ACGME at the end of this month that I'm attending, they have some seminar talks on these site visits, but those who've already been through it, if you've just received your ACGME certification and you don't have any new write-ups, do they still plan to do site visits if they've just reissued you that? And then secondly, how long of an advance notice do they give you?
Well, first of all, site visits, they're supposed to be 10-year site visits. Okay, so years. They do sometimes do a special site visit if you're having problems. If they'll do a site visit, like if you had a lot of citations or, you've gotten continued with warning and some different things like that, that can initiate a site visit.
Okay.
If you have a really bad survey, different things can make them say, you know what, we need to go. And they may even do in person in those situations.
Okay.
The site visits I'm talking about are the 10-year accreditation site visits, which everybody should have. And again, ours should have been in like 2020. And that would have been 10 years from when we first got accredited, when the new, what's it called? NAS, the new, the one, well, I don't know.
There's so many new acronyms for me. I don't know.
Well, and it's one that we don't use very often, but it's the next accreditation something or other. And they started that because, this has been a really, I wasn't here at the time when things were really different than they are now. I wasn't a program coordinator, but my understanding is, there didn't used to be so many rules. There didn't used to be so much like, stuff that you had to keep up with. According to Dr. Moy, like when he got into residency, you just like talked to somebody, you went and interviewed and they said, do you want a spot here? It was
Oh, wow.
a completely different world.
Yeah.
So, and that wasn't like super, super long ago. I mean, he's not 85 or something, so things have really evolved a lot. And so this is relatively, they basically did a big, huge revamp back, I don't know, like maybe the mid 2000s. And they did the next accreditation system. I would have to be looking at the ACGME page to see what the acronym is, but
I think somebody typed it in the chat there, next accreditation system. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So that is where this came from. When they started doing this more formalized way of measuring programs, compliance with the rules and all of that. So that's what this is talking about. If you had like a site visit for cause, they might not need all of this, but they'll tell you exactly what they need. First of all, this, you won't have to go find this. When you get a notification that you're going to have a site visit, they're going to send you the information. It's just that this is a way that you can hopefully be a little bit ready for it. My understanding is it can happen within about 2 months of you first knowing that it's going to happen.
So they can notify you as short as 2 months out.
Usually they'll contact you. They'll ask you for blackout dates. You're allowed to give them a certain number of blackout dates. I don't know how many, because again, I haven't done this. I'm only going by, hearsay information. But they'll let you put in some blackout dates, and then they'll tell you what date they're going to be there. And that's pretty much set in stone then, and everybody has to be there and everything has to be done. And so again, with otolaryngology, I know that they found out they were going to have a site visit in January, and they're going to have the site visit, I think it's like mid-March.
Okay.
So it was like 2 months.
Okay. So if you just got your 10-year accreditation though, are they still with, and the only thing that would be a trigger, like you said, a trigger event.
Right.
But if you've just received your accreditation with no new write-ups, you really don't have to worry about it unless there's a trigger event. Is that correct?
Did you have a 10-year site visit?
I don't know.
Because
just started. I'll have to look.
You get a letter every year.
I got the letter. Yeah.
Okay. The letter isn't the letter isn't it. You have to have already had your 10-year site visit.
Okay.
They were doing site visits in person before COVID happened. They were way behind, way behind. Okay. And so then COVID happened and Zoom came along, and they realized that they could do this in a much more efficient way.
Okay.
And again, they've started them back up. So you should be able to look on your page when you log into ADS, and you should be able to see. Now mine says postponed, my site visit and my.
Oh, I think I have seen that where it says it was postponed in your last date. And,
which means you haven't had it yet. And if you don't know when it was originally supposed to be, that's what you really want to find out. Okay. Because that's going to help you gauge. I mean, if it wasn't supposed to be until 2022, then it may not happen at least for a year.
Okay. That makes sense. Thank you. Yeah.
Sure.
That's awesome. Thank you so much.
Anybody else?
I'm curious about this patient evaluation of resident. Is that something you guys have been doing?
Yes. And now it's really hard to get them. And I will tell you, we had a clinic manager who was really good about getting them distributed to patients when they were checking out at the clinic. And then she left, and we got we had for a while, our department administrator was having to do it. was really funny. But anyway, so then we didn't have any. We haven't had any for a while, to be honest. I've been sending them to the new clinic manager, asking them to be distributed. I have not gotten any back yet. But it isn't like you have to have one for every resident. They just want to see that you're getting some kind of input from patients about your residents.
Could you just send me a copy of what your form looks like?
Sure. Yeah, I can send it to everyone if they want.
All right, that would be great.
Yeah, the patient evaluation. It's very short. It's, you know, it's really so that they'll do it and they can do it.
Right,
quickly.
right. Okay.
I have a quick question.
Uh-huh.
I put in the chat, Stephanie, did you guys do a self-study?
You know, we were very lucky. We started doing a self-study and then they said, never mind, we're reevaluating that. And so you don't have to do it. So we had done some of it. We had done part of it. We were ready to, like, almost ready to like submit it. And then they said, oh, never mind. So we didn't do it. And it shows postponed on our self-study. And they still haven't really announced what they're doing for self-study. Because as Nicole brings up, self-study is something you would do prior to your site visit. And it was sort of supposed to help you get your ducks in a row for your site visit. So Susan, you might look to see if you had your self-study, because that would also be helpful. If they had accepted and seen your self-study, then you're really close to a site visit probably now.
So what I hear you saying, Stephanie, is that they're no longer using site study, because site study would be the thing that would trigger us to like, okay, we need to start preparing for, self-study.
Right.
Self-study would be the thing that would trigger us to prepare for site visit. But I hear you saying that they're no longer, they're kind of on hold. They've got the whole self-study thing paused and they're just jumping right to site visits.
Well, I'm not positive about that. I would have to ask the otolaryngology, because their site visit was due in 2019 and our site visit was due in 2020. So it could be that they had done a self-study and the ACGME already had that. And so it very well may be, I don't know for sure, someone who's had a site visit didn't do a self-study thing, but I do know that when you look on the ACGME's webpage, it still says they're reevaluating the self-study and whatever. So I really don't know what, you know, if that's something that is going to, you know, I know they plan on changing it. That's why they paused it. And didn't, I know they took a few from some people who said, look, we've done this whole thing and you're not going to take it and look at it. You know, they were kind of, we weren't quite that close. And I was like, fine, it's okay with me not to turn it in now. But yeah, so I really don't know the answer to that. And I think that until it doesn't seem like they've decided about it based on anything I've seen on the ACGME's page.
I have a question, Stephanie.
Sure.
These blank evaluation forms, it says professional staff evaluation, peer evaluation, self-evaluations at least twice a year before your CCC meetings. We only do their self-evaluations and peer-to-peer evaluations once a year. So when did that change?
Well, now I haven't
has to do one after each rotation.
I haven't looked at the let me see if I can go real quick to the ACGME's page. And
all right, so I can tell you, I'm right there right now, and I can tell you, it says that you have to have a minimum of 3 different sources of evaluation, because we don't do patient evaluations. We drop that because you only have to have 3 different kinds. So That's for the 360, and I'm looking right here on the ACGME website on the requirements for urology.
Yeah. Is this document, Stephanie, from your GME office? Okay.
Yes.
That's very
Yes.
different than the document you would get potentially from ACGME.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. I think this, like you said, they go above and beyond.
Yes, they do. They do. And what I'm thinking is, like, for example, 360, these are the choices of what you would provide. I don't think they're saying you have to have every one of them. Although I will tell you, we try to get staff evaluations, even though I don't have very much luck with that. We do try to get patient evaluations. We do peer evaluations, and we do it twice a year. We do a self-evaluation twice a year. And then we have the faculty evaluations. So we do have a lot of evaluations. Because again, our GME is definitely overkill. And honestly, I have to fight with them about a lot of things. And so I have to really choose my battles, because they want to, like, here's an example. Our interns who do rotations with general surgery, I was using the general surgery goals and objectives for the general surgery rotations, because that's what our residents do. They don't do urology on general surgery rotations. One of the highest up people, not the DIO, but one of the highest up people who's doing all this in the GME office argued with me, oh no, you have to have your own goals and objectives for that, because your residents must do like urology. And I said, no, they don't. In fact, they really just do scout work. And, you know, they're not really doing anything except the stuff that nobody else wants to do for the most part. The reality is. But so we use the same intern rotation information that general surgery does, because general surgery is directing them. We are not directing them when they're on a general surgery rotation. And I had to argue with her about that for 5 minutes before she finally got it and realized, oh, okay. Because for some reason in her mind, she thought a urologist on a general surgery rotation would be doing urology. And I was like, nope, not doing urology. So again, I know, because I know that, a lot of things I just don't argue with it. I just do it. And, you know, if we've got more than we need and we find that out, right, then I can say, look, we didn't need that. We're not going to do it anymore. But until I actually find out myself personally that our site visitor isn't going to ask me for those things, I'm going to try to have them as much as I can. I don't obsess over the patient evaluations. I tried to get them. I think they're a good thing. I mean, I have to say the comments that some patients would make or whatever could be good. If nothing else, just, you know, oh, Dr. So-and-so was really caring and thoughtful and whatever. And I think it kind of gives you a different insight into the resident in their interaction with the patients. But I don't obsess over whether we have them or not, because I feel like we do have enough other things.
So I guess my question was, y'all are doing these evaluations twice a year.
Yeah.
And is this on here, is this from your GME office? Is this what the site visitor wanted? Because we're only doing those once a year.
Well, this is my GME office telling me that the site visitor is going to ask me to upload these that are done twice a year.
Because we were doing it twice a year, and then Dr. Taryn said they only require us to do this once a year, so we'll do it in May.
Yeah, well, and you know, honestly, I personally think that should be fine, but again, I would have to go into the
I guess I just need to find out from the RRC.
Or you need to just look at the program requirements, because it will tell you in the program requirements what it is. That's what I was actually trying to go to and look at and see what it says specifically. Because that's the whole thing. The program requirements is exactly what you would need to be going by. And if my you know, a GME office is doing overkill, then that's on them. That's not really on us. The site visitors aren't going to ask for anything more than what's in your program requirements. So I was going to look here just real quick and see if I could. Does anybody else have any other questions?
I do again, the newbie, sorry.
Go ahead.
So I found my page in ads, and it's obviously telling me the information that you just asked me to look at. My last site visit was actually in 2011, and it says my next site visit, self-study and site visit tenure, is both still postponed. Is everybody still saying postponed?
So yours would have been due in 2021.
Okay.
So you are a little, like, you're behind me because mine was due in 2020.
Okay.
So they're going to be going in order. They're not going to jump ahead to somebody who was due in 21. They're going in the order to catch up with, you know, everything.
Okay. And then real general comment for everybody here, that email that came out about our program requirements and the changes, proposed changes, including our FTEs, which when I'm here from you guys, we need to change our FTEs.
Absolutely.
Are we going to have another meeting kind of on that before that comment is due, and, you know, kind of bonding together to make sure we're, you know, supporting each other on the different changes, or maybe understanding them?
Well, I think what everybody should do personally is go in and make a comment. We can make comments. I went in and made a comment. And if we all do that, because I'll tell you, they tried this once before and the urology RC didn't put it through for whatever reason. And it was the exact way that they're trying it again. So they've got to have enough support. And, you know, if only the negative voices are heard, or, you know, leave comments. That's why I said, if you can get your program director to go in there and leave a comment saying, I believe this is, because honestly, I feel like that's a much more fair way of you know, we're still on the low side as far as FTE.
We are, yeah.
Even with this change, we would still be, I think, on the low side compared to a lot of other programs. But it's a much more equitable distribution of effort than the 0.5 that we currently have. 0.5 is a joke. It's ridiculous.
Oh God, yes. Just from what I've seen, and I'm learning something new every day.
If you're going to be able to provide all this stuff that you need, you know, this is the stuff you're having to keep up with constantly.
Right.
And in addition to a million other things that you're doing, you can't do that in 20 hours a week.
No,
I don't think it's even
not even 40 sometimes.
and honestly, having, you know, really having 15 residents or having 5 residents, a lot of times doesn't really matter, because you've still got to set up the evaluations, and you've got to send out the evaluations, and you've got to follow up with them and follow up about duty hours and all that. And maybe the reality is, for me, I only usually have a couple of people who are kind of the people that don't get their evaluations done or whatever. So it has less to do with the quantity of people and more to do with just the quantity of work that we have.
I meant too, like the actual changes in the program requirements, not just the FTE, but not knowing, you know, exactly, like you guys said, not being really in the mix for long enough. Is there any kind of a board posting in our Google group on what we really
was very, I thought it was very, you know,
logical.
It was just a no, no problem. It was not anything that I personally thought. Did you read it? Did you?
I did. I read everything, and that's what I wanted to talk to the group. I thought today would be a good day.
Like it was kind of a, you know, an issue or anything.
Okay,
you know?
That's good to hear. Yeah, because I wanted to hear from you guys, and before I made my comments. So,
I mean, that was just me. I mean, somebody else might see it differently, but it didn't look like anything that was problematic. Or
did anybody see anything that we should comment on? No. Quiet room.
And Susan,
all right, thanks.
Susan, just to give you an example, my site visit was due in 2018, and we still are postponed.
Okay.
So that can give you an idea of how far back they are.
That is. That's a lot.
Urology could be a lot further back, say, than otolaryngology, because, you know, they have the review committee participates in that site visit. So, so our review committee may be a lot more behind.
Okay.
So, you know, that's good to hear, because hopefully Kim's would happen before mine or before yours, Susan. So,
Okay. Awesome.
you know,
Thanks, ladies.
we can all give a heads up if we get a site visit email.
Yes, everybody on that chat, let us know. Thank you.
Sure. Now I am looking here at the program requirements, and, you know, it doesn't say twice a year. So it doesn't say once a year. It doesn't say how often. There must be a minimum of 3 different sources of evaluations. I don't see anything that says how often those evaluations have to be done. You know, there are things, at least annually, there must be a summative evaluation of each resident that includes their readiness to progress to the next level. So I'm seeing that, but I'm not seeing. So again, this could be overkill. You know, this could be, you know, our GME office, because every GME office is different. And I will tell you, if I have a site visit and I've been doing this twice a year because they told me to, and I don't have to have it for twice a year, I'm going to do some screaming to the GME office, because don't make me, well, first of all, not even just me, don't make my residents do, you know, 15 peer evaluations twice a year. They don't want to do that, you know, and I don't blame them. So I don't see a problem really with a self-evaluation twice a year. I think some people can actually use that. Kind of makes them think about what they're doing. But anyway, so yeah, I don't, like I say, I don't see anything that says how often.
All right, Stephanie. Okay,
Yeah.
if you're looking at the program requirements, VA1D, if there's a background, it says their program director will review the evaluations a minimum of every 6 months. So that right there tells you every 6 months you have to sit down and do your review with your residents.
Right.
And the evaluations, it says you have to evaluate at the end of each rotation. It has to be every 3 months.
Right. But it doesn't say that you have to have 2 peer review evaluations a year or 2 self.
It says you have to have at least 3, a minimum of 3 different sources of evaluations.
Right.
And it says here, it's under VA1C. It says multiple evaluators.
Right.
Yeah. So you have to have 3 sources of evaluations.
But what we're talking about here is the fact that my GME says you have to have self-evaluations at least twice a year. And it says you have to have peer evaluations at least twice a year. And what we're saying is, this doesn't say you have to have self and peer evaluations twice a year. Right. They're interpreting it to be, they're relating it to the semi-annual review and the annual review, those reviews that have to be done. So they're saying to do that review, you need that information. That's what they're saying.
Yep.
And they're interpreting it that way. Whether or not that's what the site visitors think, I don't know, because it doesn't say the kind of evaluations that you have to have. So if you have, for example, staff evaluations and faculty evaluations, I guess, you know, if you have the self-evaluation twice a year, then you would have 3 kinds of evaluations twice a year for sure.
Yeah, and maybe you have to have multiple evaluators, and they do list it out: faculty, peer, patient, self, or professional staff members. So, yeah.
So again, you know, until I have a site visit, I'm not going to know for sure what the site visitor is going to ask me for. But it's better to know what they might ask you for and think about if you're able to do it without, again, the patient ones are pretty easy, you know, because they're scanned in and it's not through New Innovations or anything, you know, it's a piece of paper, we scan it in, we put it in a folder, and then if someone asks for them, I actually would attach them to their semi-annual review and new innovations so that they could see them. I would attach the patient evaluations for any of the residents that I got. But again, I haven't gotten them for over a year. So because of the changes in our clinic. But I'm happy to share what we use. And then if somebody wants to use it, they can. If you don't, you know, I wouldn't worry about it. But definitely be sure, like Lynn said, that you're using at least 3 different sources and, you know, not just the sources, but 3 different kinds of evaluations, right? Not just, I mean, I guess that is the source, like a staff evaluation, a faculty evaluation, a self-evaluation. Just pick the 3 that you want. And I would say you want to have those twice a year, just so that you're covering everything, your bases.
I believe you have to have faculty of residents after each rotation, which I think it does say in there.
Yeah, you definitely have to have after every, well, it's after every 3 months or at the end of the rotation.
Yeah.
So our rotations typically, many of ours are a month. If you have only a month rotation, you have to have an evaluation at the end. So if you have a 2-month rotation, you have to have evaluation at the end. If you have a 4-month rotation, you have to put one in the middle somewhere and have one at the end, because you can't do just a 4-month rotation, one evaluation for a 4-month rotation. And you have to have one at the end of every rotation. So for example, in our PGY 2 and 3 year, almost all of our rotations are month long. So there's 12 evaluations for each resident for each of those years from faculty. Anything else? If not, we can move along to Denise and Kim and Nicole, who are going to talk about steps to applying for a complement increase. But what I want to do here right now, I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to stop the recording so that I can restart it.